and they talked about a national park. And they talked about developing a comprehensive plan. At the time, there was only one other county in the state that had countywide comp plan, Jefferson County up north, and they're under a lot of development pressure, next to D.C. and so on. So Fayette County, that was visionary back then, Bud Hill and all those guys, and they said, let's do it. But if you read that plan in context of planning standards, best management practices today, and what a plan is about, and where it comes from, it's prehistoric. And but it was a great effort at the time. Back in 1968, they used that to leverage economic potential for this county that never would have occurred if they hadn't had that. But when it came to the municipalities, they said, well, let's just see if anyone's interested. But they literally just changed the cover. And
John Witt was mayor out in the town of Fayetteville, so that's how it got about.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and so I think you're right about the rewrite. I mean, in terms of like a new planning process that creates a new plan, why not go for, take advantage of some of the standards? I mean, like Brooks McCabe was the senator who drove the change to 8A. And Brooks McCabe would be a great resource. Even have him come speak, because he understands the planning process.
I understand the importance of the comprehensive plan, and while the statutory framework says we have to have one, but what I don't agree with is that this thing is designed to be a recipe for every time you have a zoning request, thou shalt do this. I think that cuts out, number one, input from the public. Number two, the skill and judgment of the people on the Planning Commission. And if you read the Planning Commission definition, what types of people are supposed to be on the Planning Commission, it can't just be anybody off the street. It has to be a member of the municipal governing body, it has to be a member of the administration, mayor, and it has to be people qualified through experience, either in the form of education or work-life experience, to understand what planning is.
You want planners on the planning.
Yeah, you want people with vision, people like John Witt who have vision. But I get the sense that the comprehensive plan is designed to be, some folks want to think the comprehensive plan is designed to say, these are the 10 commandments, and if this is what the comp plan says a piece of property should be, then it shall be that. I think that may cut yourself out of the opportunity.
When we rewrote the plan for the county, there were 18 months of public hearings. And really, the plan was, the comprehensive plan was simply the product of all that public input, organized by a professional, in a way that, it falls into sort of the categories. You want to look at all the different aspects that make up your land use. And so that's where, a proper planning process to generate a comp plan provides for community-wide input. So when you're done, everyone has ownership to say, yeah, I was at that meeting. Look, there's one of my, this is one of my ideas. So, and then once your comp plan is complete, you craft an ordinance that reflects the spirit of that comp plan. So I think properly done, it does embody public input and governmental input and really everybody's input.
But it cuts out this fellow that moves here 2 years from after it's passed.
I know, he's not coming to meetings.
But I'm saying, I'm talking about him metaphorically, I guess.
If
you weren't here at these comp plan meetings, you came in and said, hey, I'd like to, your question at the beginning of the meeting I thought was great. What would, although if you live here, you're local. If it's on your driver's license, you're local. I don't know, that's a whole other topic. But you make a good point when you say, well, what would people here like? That's refreshing. I think that says, I don't want to step on toes, but I want to be part of the group. And I think a comp plan that you didn't take part of shouldn't cut you out of your opinion and your ability to say what you think.
Well, I think what we would hope from that comp planning process is that guiding principles are in place, that there is a sense that values are, respected, not necessarily, certainly each case of a development
you don't want spots
opportunity needs to be looked at and the merits of that opportunity. Certainly, I don't disagree with that at all. I think we're just talking about guiding principles.
Well, there's some real practical aspects to a comp plan. You want to look at where your infrastructure is. You want to look at the capacity of that infrastructure and where it provides for growth without overtaxing the infrastructure. Maybe what you find out is that you need to increase your sewage capacity, or you need to extend your water lines. You know, if you're going to have, but there are a lot of practical aspects.
It has an infrastructure traditionally always played catch up to development.
Right, and you want to get ahead of that game.
I mean, there are a few planned. I mean, Savannah is one city that was probably properly planned for development and growth, but by and large, the city of Charleston, no way. The city of Morgan,
Beckley,
no way.
Beckley is a great example of like
sit on Eisenhower Drive for 3 hours trying to get.
Yeah.
You know, it's nonsense.
But you know, when you were first elected, shortly afterwards, I asked Terrell Ellis, who's been working in small communities her whole life in West Virginia, Terrell Ellis and Associates in Charleston. And they go into small communities and do planning all the time. And Terrell's greatest strength is her ability to cobble together funding to make these things happen. There's in Clendenin, wherever that is, there was a schoolhouse that's being turned into housing.
Wherever that is.
I don't know where it is.
Charleston.
Yeah.
79. Yeah.
She basically was critical to making that whole project happen. But anyway, I called her up, and she came to Fayetteville, and she met with you, and she met with all the different council members, because there was interest at the time. There was talk about, you know, engaging a planning process to either write a new comp plan or update the existing comp plan. And she's still there, and she's still a resource. And I think it would be worth just having the conversation because excuse me?
I'll meet with her.
Would you?
Sure.
Because she's super bright, and she's been cracking this nut in little towns all over West Virginia for a long, long time.
You know, I think we're very fortunate. I thought we were fortunate before the capital budget, but we're pretty fortunate in terms of the 7 municipalities in the county of what we have to offer in terms of what 19 has done for us, what tourism does for us. So, you know, we're in better shape than most. I think, how in the world is Smithers, not picking on Smithers, but how are they going to pay for a comprehensive plan rewrite?
They're not. They need the Golly Bridge to
$500,000
They need to work together.
We need to make a new town then.
Maybe you can clarify. My understanding is that governments, municipalities, or towns don't need comprehensive plans unless they're going to have land use restrictions. Is that right?
I think you are correct, because one of the suggestions to me was, well, if you can't afford it, just repeal your zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
You have no zoning, but I wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Well, I'm not suggesting that. I was just saying.
But I think legally,
Does Smithers have zoning?
Right.
They're not obligated. That was
an example of
I was just asking. And I wanted to comment about a couple of things. I don't know if you were the comment about some people think that there should be a regimented document that if this is what it says, that's what we should do. I never thought that. I recognize that plans of this sort, there's just too much going on. They need to be guiding documents.
You're right, because...
And I never...
Okay.
And if you thought that or you thought that I was advocating that it was a strict interpretation,
because the 68 comp plan would have flown right in the face of what I wanted to do. I think I was the only one on the planning commission that wanted to give Rachel Babkirk the zoning for that church. I disagree with my members on council. I think that was a mistake. But that's my opinion, and I respect them for theirs, and I respect them for the reasons that they stated. They were not in favor of that. But I found her to be incredibly engaging, a very bright-lighted, spirited person that, I've not seen her this summer, but I felt like that was a good opportunity, but I lost the vote, so I'm full support about it.
Along the lines of what Gene commented about the county plans, when a community goes through the planning process, there's that community visioning, and somebody always ends up losing out. They don't get what they want. And so there's going to be some people who are unhappy with the final product, but by and large, if it's open and transparent and people make the best effort, it's like, that's the best we can do. And, you know, the people who finally stamp it can feel proud that, all right, we did the best we could. And there's going to be a lot of other people who go, yeah, we did. We understand. We didn't all agree. One of the things that makes it good is that when Steve comes to town and he wants to open a climbing shop or hang a shingle out, he can check into the comp plan, see what the plans are for growth. And I'll speak for myself. If I went to a town and I saw that the community had done that, as I see Fayette County has, that says a lot about the community. That they got together, they pulled it off. And I know it's a lot of kicking and, you know, a lot of talking.
I'm not afraid of the process.
I think it says something to people who are coming here. And it can be a selling point that we have done a community visioning process and we've got a plan. It may change. It almost certainly will change. But
That was the idea in 1968.
yeah.
Right. What's the timeline for that? Say you had the money right now.
Well, we're hoping that toward the end of the year, when our accountant comes back to review with us sort of halfway through the fiscal year, we are and what we have, that there will be some sunshine that we can start with that planning process. I would hope to think by at least the first part of the year, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, that the economy turns around and the revenues are there, that we can start planning that process. But I'm excited about what Gene says, that maybe there's a dollar hunter out there that might help in that process. I know Pat Ford was also involved. You mentioned that.
Pat Ford was the one, he put together the Route 19 corridor management plan, and then he led the process for the county rewriting comp plan. And there are a lot of qualified people out there. And I think that for a small town, you want to scale, there are people who work at different levels, And I think one thing about Tara Ellis is that she's just, she's focused on a small town. But just to reiterate about the county planning process, it was not a divisive process. I mean, it was exhaustive in terms of the amount of public meetings. There were 18 months of public meetings. But
on a much bigger scale.
On a much bigger area, wouldn't take that for town. But my point is that these public meetings were held in like the different parts of the county, and at first people wouldn't really speak up, and then you go back, and more people began to talk. And by the time it was all over, people were excited. It was a community building event. To get out and really give people time to think and talk about what they want to see, what they want to preserve, what they want to develop, what they want to change, how they want their place to grow.
I think the biggest, what you said is encouraging, but the biggest problem that I see with government sitting on the other side of that bench is complacency. I mean, I will guarantee you that people don't come to the council meeting to be informed. They come for one issue, for their issue. And the sense of community, it's somewhat discouraging because you don't have people that just come to the meeting to see what's going on. It's my neighbor's parking his truck here, which is fine. And I'm not poo-pooing people coming to us for help because that's what we're for. But a sense of community and working together would be refreshing, both on the planning commission level and at council. Last planning commission meeting we had, there were 4 people there, 2 of which were people that were on the agenda.
I have gone to several meetings, and I've gone to several Oak Hill meetings, and I kind of do find our council meetings a little like, what just happened? And so they're very fast, they're quick, there's a lot of like articles, blah, 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 and so like, you know, I try, and I know several friends have gone just to, Tom Jones parking lot or whatever, and then they leave and they have to say, like, what just happened there. So,
Well, next time you come to a meeting, you don't know what goes on, you don't ask me what happened, I'll be mad at you.
stop everything.
Years ago, city council meetings were a lot more the way you're talking about.
Yeah.
Under the Jim Murdoch administration?
Well, you know, what was it, Tom Jim? You know, it was the Tom Jim show there for a while, but it was just, things are changing in town, and, you know, people would come and talk, and just that used to happen a lot. It'd be great, because when they were at the fire station years ago, a lot of people used to go there.
Well, there's good and bad with that. The sort of casual atmosphere has its benefits and drawbacks, but I sort of take the position that what we do, everything we do has legal ramifications, and it needs to be done properly and done strictly. And if it cuts out the personal aspect of it, I apologize, but we're required to comply with state law, and I think we strive to do that.
I'm standing because we're nearing the end of our time.
Well, let me say a couple things before you have to go. I forgot to mention
Okay.
this. I looked at your priority list on the internet, and the short-term goals about the theater, I think we're super on board with that. The planting flowers at the entrance of town, I know Lori's here on the beautification committee. Super support that. The one thing that I saw on the list of long-term goals that I think is very important and worthwhile is rethinking of the usage of the memorial building. I drive by the Raleigh County Armory and I think, why can't we do something like that with our memorial building? Why can't we make a convention center some type of convention use to have business meetings in town? We have super great restaurants, we have shops in town. Why can't we convert that to something where people have retreats for businesses? I take my law firm on a retreat, and we've used cabins in the local area, but I just think there's a tremendous opportunity with that building for convention use. And if we're a cool small town, can't imagine.
Not anymore, according to that.
Well, we're one
You
of
gotta
the
take
coolest
the
small
sign
towns.
down.
Yeah.
I wanted to plug in on Oakland is working and trying to clean concerts and working with different people, just bringing stuff in, trying to bring something.
But I mean, what Gene said a minute ago is right. The acoustics are pretty bad in that place, so it's going to require a significant investment of money to that building to make it more usable in the fashion that I've suggested. But
It needs air.
and the repurposing of the high school. I mean, I just see that as an incredible business incubator, small business incubator. I know Bill's talked with our Fayette County Board of Education, and they're dealing with their own sets of problems and turmoil, but that's something that I guess is sort of on the back burner with Dr. Dial or Mr. Dial's working on the school system. But
the vision for the grade school was incubators if they had ever rolled them.
I mean, what a great,
Yeah.
I mean, as a small business, to have a place where you can go for a minimal expense to get yourself off the ground with internet access. And I won't get into that, but I really was tickled to read that because I think those are 2 or 3 eyesores that could be turned into a positive force. Not really an eyesore, but just not meeting their full potential.
I didn't maintain the green space.
Sure.
Can I just ask quickly, since I came in late, and maybe you mentioned it, but in lieu of the updated comp plan, is the current plan for growth, continued development of that corridor and expansion of that current development?
Well, you know, I don't know if you're familiar with the meets and bounds of the municipality as it stands, but we sort of have a description that's a product of minor boundary adjustments. For example, the sheets and all that was a not a minor boundary adjustment. It was an annexation by petition of the majority landowners. So Mr. Luis's petition to move in to the town. Everything on the west side, other than a little bit down at Law Creek and a little bit there across from the Walmart, is not town limits. So whenever you talk about further business use of 19, I think Matt Winder owns the property that's on the hill on the same side as the sheets that way. I don't have my finger on the pulse of what he'd like to do with that, but it's certainly a nice piece of commercial property that should be used. I know I've talked with the fellows that are doing some work out at the airport, and they're really exciting things that he's told me about for use at the airport with making it. It was a pretty vivid description when he had the bottle christening for the new airplane. He said something that kind of stuck in my mind. He said, "I was the kid that hung on the fence at the airport and loved to watch the planes take off." Well, I was the kid that loved to watch my dad work on cars, and that's a passion that I have today. And it's nice to see people that are passion driven, that really want to work on things that they like, that also improve the community. So that might be another area of economic development.
Well, what's great is that airport, I think, is deeded in Esterman Airport. And I think it's important that we preserve some green space and 19 doesn't just become a continuous sprawl. I think that's been, we've been over that so many times in this country that there's still a rhythm there, and it's nice. I just hope the town isn't.
I don't know how much more. I don't know how many more decisions we could make in that on our stretch of what's in our limits on 19, but. We certainly are satisfied with the way they set the big boxes back and planted trees and the new development on the side near the large mound. I guess we're going to be.
Yeah.
I really wish something could be done there, but I'm sorry. I think keep going. Thank you all for the opportunity to come speak to you. We meet every Thursday. We have a meeting this Thursday.